It's no secret that human beings crave escapism. Anything that separates us from our boring, miserable lives allows us to keep going on with our boring, miserable lives. So we seek out immersive worlds in other media. And while such immersive media can be really intriguing because of the technical prowess that goes into making it so hyper-realistic, it can also be boring. I play games to escape reality, not to be annoyed by it. So what about the other end of the spectrum? Surrealism it is then. This is not possible in real life whatsoever. I can only do this in a video game and that's boring. If you remove any semblance of realism whatsoever, that piece of art is no longer relatable. If it's not relatable whatsoever, it's not possible to get invested in it. I don't want to drive a hypercar with zero sense of speed, worried about fuel consumption and tire wear. Neither do I want to do barrel rolls on a hypercar, because that is absolutely impossible. But so is driving a hypercar through a thunderstorm. However, something's different here. The presentation of the impossible here is realistic. Rain droplets are not that big. However, the physics with which they sway left and right look absolutely stunning. This is realism with a splash of expressionism thrown in there. Magical realism. The idea of coming up with impossible scenarios, but then executing it in a way that feels real. And the appeal that this magical realism has, it can translate to animation as well. It's one of the things that makes Yuttapon's animation so appealing. He constantly drops you into settings that make no sense, but he animates everything in it realistically, as if it could exist in our world. Look at this space. It physically makes no sense. Why is there no floor? Why is the background this color? But what if you draw a character running realistically through the space? If a goo monster slowly reformed its body, what would that look like in real life? A boy hanging off the face of a dragon. It's impossible. But even then, looking at this animation, some part of your brain goes, holy shit, that is so realistic. That contrast of realism is incredibly appealing. Now, this magical realism, as I call it, it does fall in a spectrum. Examples I could use to explain this is Thunderclap Part 1 and Thunderclap Part 2. The spaces that Nakaya Onsen and Miso constructed for Thunderclap Part 1, all of them physically make sense. Yes, a bunch of buildings melting together, it's unrealistic, but if it did exist, this is probably what it would look like. Our brains understand that. For Thunderclap Part 2, on the other hand, Hakyugo immediately drops you into a space that makes no sense. Why does the background slowly shift from floor level to the side of a building in between the fight? It makes no sense, yet it is grounded in absolute realism because look at these movements. The body dynamics of the characters still have weight. Chainsaw Man Season 1 is incredibly technically impressive because it emulates realism to such a perfect degree. Chainsaw Man's movie dials up the expressionism to a degree where you still feel like it's technically impressive because of how realistic it is, but the action scenes are just more fun to watch. Shota Goshozono has put Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 at the extreme end of the spectrum. He's dropping us to a world that he's constructed. There are unique and unrealistic colors that exist in this world. And yet, all these elements are grounded using realistic rules that make sense to us. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3's core staff mostly remains the same. It is still led by the most visionary, ambitious director of our generation, Shota Goshozono. It would be on the same level as if Atsushi Wakabayashi or Toshio Gisuru directed the entirety of Naruto instead of individual episodes, or if Hakyugo or Miso directed a whole series. I guess it is also happening with Fate Strange Fake, but you can't really call that show a proper series now, can you? But yes, what can you expect when a highlight director is the series director? You'll get a show that is trying to be ambitious and fascinating 100% of the time. Series directors supervise the entire project and supervise every single element of the entire project, whether that's art direction, the compositing, the music direction and sound direction. And with action animators turned directors like Shota Goshozono, of course they supervise the action animation and the animation direction as well. Goso's supervision as the series director can be best seen in the Hidden Inventory arc. He was very hands-on with the first 5 episodes of Season 2, so even though every episode of Hidden Inventory arc was directed by different artists, you could absolutely still make out Shota Goshozono's sensibilities within these same episodes. The atrocious schedule of Season 2 didn't allow him to maintain that level of supervision throughout the show. For the Shibuya arc, he basically went back to his role of episode director while also doing a lot of emergency key animation, emergency direction, and also some highlight animation thrown in there as he's still a fucking insane artist. For the Culling Games teaser, it just looks like every single shot was supervised by Goso, which kind of checks out because from my understanding, most of these shots are from episode 1, which is almost always storyboarded and directed by the series director, so in this case being Goso. But expect the base level of quality for season 3 to be the same as that for the first 5 episodes of season 2, which is incredible because that arc was a masterpiece, quite possibly the best produced arc in modern shonen. Now, Gosu's hands-on supervision does not mean that you're not going to see as much experimentation as season 2. What Gosu is going to provide as a series director is an incredibly ambitious base for experimentation and also super high quality supervision that comes with all of his experience. There are definitely going to be episodes where he's going to be mostly hands-off because there are going to be other equally ambitious episode directors in this project. God, I'm so excited for it. His skill with direction does not end with the visual elements. The director is supposed to supervise everything, and you can tell that in the trailer. This is the best art direction and compositing that Jujutsu Kaisen has ever had, even though the staff in that regard remains unchanged from season 2. It's just that the team couldn't focus on these two elements while producing season 2 because 17 out of season 2's 23 episodes were being worked on days before they went on air. I am not even exaggerating. But here, the compositing, the art direction, and the animation can be unified under a proper directorial vision. The other things that have changed is the art style itself. The character designs have changed. Season 2's character designs were great. Sayaka Koiso provided a really good base for the artist to work with, but it wasn't really the most impressive from an aesthetic sense. This is not me disparaging Sayaka Koiso, absolutely not. She's an incredible artist, but it was in the same vein as the art direction and compositing, in the sense that the goal was just to provide something for the animators to start working. Koiso was picked because she was a character designer alongside Hiramatsu in season 1, so she's most familiar with the designs and can provide a solid, easy to work with base, and they were just really good on-model designs. They were not trying to be ambitious, unique, or idiosyncratic. Which of course didn't matter because everyone did whatever they wanted with the designs anyway, including Sayaka Koiso herself. As the season progressed, we could see Koiso's art style evolving, especially with the Blu-ray covers that she drew. These look absolutely nothing like her own character designs. Season 3, the common recurring theme is to treat every single element as a work of art that can be pushed to its limit. There were 6 main chief animation directors for season 2, or at least it started off as such. Takako Shimizu left after the 5th episode to most likely work on Chainsaw Man. Technically, she did contribute in Shibuya arc. She made this wonderful Megumi drawing, but for the actual anime, she didn't actually do anything. The rest of the names were significantly important to the production, especially Yosuke Yajima and Sota Yamazaki, who did absolutely unfathomable levels of work. Yamaso displayed his talent as a character designer almost instantly. He almost always did his own thing, or what the episode director expected out of him. Whereas Yosuke Yajima was focused on elevating the base character designs. He was never really displaying his own artistic idiosyncrasies, but his impressive artistic sense could immediately be spotted. This looks like it's faithful to the character design, but it has its own Yosuke Yajima appeal. Whereas this is just a complete transformation of the design by Nakaya Onsen. And that's just what these artists usually do. Yosuke Yajima never did that. Even when he drew with a ridiculous level of detail, he kept the aesthetic of the base designs in mind. So I was really excited to see what his interpretation of the designs would look like, and guess who the character designer is for season 3. Yajima's designs look absolutely stunning. Yajima's corrections were exclusively composed of full even lines with very sharp features, which definitely makes the lives of Dogamen much easier because all you have to do is trace those simple lines. Whereas if I was a Dogamen and I saw this drawing, I would be fucking crying, which wouldn't matter at the end of the day because Sota Yamazaki would do the Doga himself. Here, the designs that Yajima has created itself has uneven lines and it's rendered so beautifully. The appeal in this animation is to the fact that it's hand-drawn animation, and the raw, unprocessed nature of this line art just boosts that appeal. The most impressive thing about this is just that these are the base designs. This is what the drawings made by the character designer looks like. The base level is this astronomically high, which just means that every drawing will look good. Yajima is not the only designer involved. There are 2 character designers. You might be expecting another name from this list, but no, this artist was not credited as one of the main chief animation directors for the project. It rarely happens where you have to change the credit after the show airs, but honestly, this is one of those rare cases where it should have been done, and I'm talking about Hiromi Niwa. Niwa was not credited as a chief animation director because she was not a chief animation director when the project started out. She was a recurring animation director even for season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen. For season 2, she continued with the same, working as an animation director. Halfway through the production, however, she made her chief animation director debut alongside the aforementioned Yosuke Yajima and Reina Igawa. Then she appeared once again as a chief animation director for the last 4 episodes, back to back. Chief animation director for 4 episodes in a row, because the last 4 episodes were the absolute extreme of brute forcing, the tail end of the worst TV anime production of all time. But the point is, all all the other people who worked as chief animation directors for all the episodes were usually a combination of these names. In rare cases, we did have guest chief animation directors, like episode 14 with Totos and Shun. They probably just moved their chairs from the Chainsaw Man side to the Jujutsu Kaisen side to work on this episode. But yeah, they did not consistently keep appearing. In the last 4 episodes as well, while there was one exception in Yuriko Ishii, all the other names credited as CADs were a combination of the main chief animation director's name with the sole exception of Hiromi Niwa. So yeah, she was basically one of the main chief animation directors for season 2. She was just not credited as such. She was just so skilled and familiar with Jujutsu Kaisen that she was allowed to take up that role halfway into the project. And now she's a character designer alongside Yosuke Yajima. From the sequences in the trailer, it looks like most of the Yuta sequences were corrected by Niwa and the UGs were corrected by Yajima to further create a dichotomy while they fight. It's a poetic production. Of course it's going to be with Gosso as the head.
Niwa has drawn Yuji as well. I mean, this KV is just a testament to her skill.
Another change with the core staff list is the assistant director, Ryota Aike, being replaced by Yosuke Takada.
I'm assuming it's because Aike was just busy acting as the chief director for Mono, which, by the way, incredible production, just have to point that out.
And the best possible person to replace him is Yosuke Takada. The first proper Gosso high-profile episode was episode 17 of Jujutsu Kaisen season 1, which was followed up by episode 18 by Yosuke Takada. Gosso then directed season 2 episode 1, which was followed up by Yosuke Takada's episode 2. Gosso then directed episode 9 of season 2, which was followed up by, can you guess? Yosuke Takada's episode 10. He's also directly worked alongside Gosso with episode 18, where he processed the storyboards alongside him. Regrettably, a very broken episode because of the schedule. The rest of the core staff remain unchanged. I'm particularly happy about Yoshimasa Terui staying as the composer. In episode 8 of Chainsaw Man, we saw the best utilization of Kensuke Ushio's score. And watching the trailer for season 3, it's pretty much guaranteed that Gosso is going to be doing the same with Terui's music. We still don't know what the full extent of the core staff is, like, more chief animation directors maybe. We don't know who the main animators are going to be. I'm assuming Kosuke Kato might not be back because he was busy with Yaiba. And the other 3 main animators definitely have some level of contribution in the Chainsaw Man movie as well. But the production pipelines in MAPPA is still completely broken. It's not really accurate to say that. It's more like they've never existed in the first place. And while that is still technically a bad thing, it is no longer as awful as it was before. What I mean by the production pipelines not existing is that MAPPA operates in a way such that they put whatever stuff is available on whatever project at whatever time they need them to be there. That is not necessarily a bad thing. It is how Ufotable operates, for example, and they're doing great. It's just that they simply have more time for each project. And for the first time in forever, MAPPA has that too. Splitting production lines can also have their demerits, like Mob Psycho Season 3 for example. We got 1 Utapon scene for the show. I wanted more Utapon scenes. Yutaka Nakamura himself wanted more Utapon scenes. He loves the project so much and wanted to work on it so desperately that he ended up contributing with second key animation just to have his name attached to the project once again. Because the production lines between Mob Psycho 100 and My Hero Academia are split, and he has to focus more on My Hero Academia. But in Studio MAPPA's case, even though Sota Yamazaki is a chief animation director for a bulk of the Chainsaw Man movie, I wouldn't be surprised if he appears on Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3. Conversely, I also wouldn't be surprised if Yajima did something for Chainsaw Man, though his presence is not really needed there. The staff list is fucking insane after all. Basically what I'm getting to is that the Sechimo team has such an insane range of staff, they can definitely be split for the most part into 2 different projects, and as long as these 2 projects have enough time available for production, all the animators and animation directors can just work on both of them, as there are going to be buffer periods during the production. Keywords: as long as both of them have enough time. Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 was produced in a particularly unlucky time because what it was following up was a TV anime production of Chainsaw Man. Also, they did not have a core staff, so it was the classic MAPPA technique of building a new production line out of an existing production line and making an anime out of it. This time you have a base because the Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 staff are still here, the Chainsaw Man Season 1 staff are still here, for the most part, and you're following after a movie production, not a TV anime production, which is also greatly beneficial. It's going to release in January. Is that a healthy production? No, there's no way that's a healthy production. But it's more in the line of classic anime industry bad, like how Frieren is a struggling production, like how My Hero Academia is a struggling production. It's no longer MAPPA levels of bad, and that is fine. And considering the staff that's on board, this is definitely more than enough time for them to create a masterpiece. It might not be perfect, but that's basically every project in the anime industry. But I do feel like this production line is going in a better path.
Especially because it might not even just be a single production line anymore. Neither Chainsaw Man movie nor Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3 have revealed who the animation producer is going to be. And Keisuke Sashima was promoted to an executive officer at MAPPA, so any of the production assistants who worked under him might have been promoted to animation producers now. So all we know, JJK and CSM might have 2 different animation producers, with Sashima just acting as the head. And regardless regardless of whether you're working with the same talent pool or not, having different animation producers is always going to be beneficial for two different projects.
And January sounds good for a single core unless they throw some release gimmicks in there. Why do they do this? Episode 1 of a project is a special project, or is the prime opportunity for the core staff to show everything that they have, which is why it's usually directed by the series director, which is why usually it's corrected by the character designers. So these dumb fucking release gimmicks do nothing but unnecessarily strain the project. Episode 1 of Heavenly Delusion, for example, had a production schedule of 2 fucking years. They're not just producing one episode, they're laying out the identity for all the future episodes, particularly cutting short the schedule for episode 1 for a fucking release gimmick only puts strain on the production. I might have to make a whole video on this because it completely fucking sucks. When has this ever worked out? Demon Slayer has first episodes grouped with other episodes and released in form of movies. Sure, produced in a specialized studio like Ufotable with strong in-house culture. Do the same with Dan Da Dan. What do you get? A completely fucked up production. Violet Evergarden can release the first 4 episodes simultaneously in a specialized TV slot. Produced in Kyoto Animation, the studio that finishes production months before the first episode airs. Frieren does the same thing, and what happens? A fucked up production. No shit. The producers are looking at the release gimmicks and only thinking about the possible profits. Release gimmick can only exist in gimmick studios. And yes, Ufotable and Kyoto Animation could be called gimmick studios. I'm not saying that in a negative way, I'm saying that in a positive way. In the vast hellscape of the anime industry, having good working conditions is a gimmick. The only thing it does is negatively affect the show. Some shows can't even figure out what their gimmick is before releasing, like fucking Fate Strange Fake. At best, this November release of the first 2 episodes didn't negatively affect the production, but it undoubtedly put some level of strain on the project that did not need to exist. People are blaming Demon Slayer and Ufotable for this, but are they really at fault? If your studio is built in a way such that it facilitates making more profit, why the fuck wouldn't you do it? The problem with other studios is that they only look at the latter half of that sentence. I'm sorry, I'm just really annoyed by this goddamn movie release gimmick. It is what it is. What are you going to do about it? Let's just finally talk about the actual animation in the trailer. Alright, literal first cut from the trailer, and look at that art direction. The anime is supposed to adapt and elevate. This is what doing both looks like. If you put the manga panels side by side, I mean, there really isn't much competition here, is there? The position of Yuji is changed with respect to the manga as well. This was definitely a deliberate decision to parallel where Gojo was sitting in episode 5. The art direction is absolutely gorgeous. The glass painted window and the red coming through it, the reflection of that red on the tiles. It's surreal in the sense that a red space like this doesn't make any sense, but it is also tangible. It's also realistic. I've never seen the sky in this shade of red, but for creating that artistic mood, realism can be dropped. So while the space makes no sense, if this space existed, this is exactly how it would look. When you talk about the sky in My Hero Academia looking bland, the usual retort that the fans of the show throw is, isn't the sky supposed to be blue? That is called missing the point. The sky is supposed to be blue, yes, but the sky can also be red. The fact that it's unrealistic does not matter if there's a vision behind it. I wonder why the sky suddenly turned red in this shot. Why was realism suddenly thrown out of the window? You see the point? Speaking of being thrown out of the windows, everything is reflected on the windows as well, right? Every element of the art direction is reflected on top of the window. So we have a ray tracing on. Here the screen is engulfed in pink light. It's not entirely engulfed in the light in a way that literally every element looks pink, no. But the overall color profile is pink. Really cool effects animation here. Lots of granularity in that effects. And the shot composition is also incredible. Yuta just casually walks in front of the frame. 2 different layers of animation and 2 different layers of art direction. You have the background art all the way behind the building, which is just the sky. You have the building itself, which is also part of the art direction. But on top of the building, you also have a layer of hand-drawn effects animation. Then in front of it is another layer of art direction, the background painting that has all these boxes, this cloth, and then another layer of 2D animation that walks in front of it. It's a very ambitious board and wouldn't really be possible if the compositing and art direction wasn't completely in tune with the director. And the thing is, this is not even that complex with its shot composition. It's difficult to get your point across if you don't exaggerate things. Depth, for example, doesn't exist. It's a 2D medium. There's no depth. Gosso uses all kinds of fisheye and complex perspectives to get that sense of depth across. Here, it's simply just art direction and compositing brilliance. Here, even through the incredibly pathetic YouTube compression, the shape of the shading within the smoke definitely looks like something Hayato Kurosaki would do. All but confirmed to be working on Chainsaw Man as well. Just another further proof that there's going to be a lot of intermixing between the stuff. Starting with great shots of hands over here. I'm assuming that's Yuji's hand, washing away the blood. This, I don't really understand the sense of scale. That's either a very big hand or a very tiny chair. A very cool shot. It almost looks like 4:3. It's CinemaScope, right? Yes, it's CinemaScope. But it looks like it's 4:3 just because of this box framing. You're looking into a room past these glass ornaments. There's only one director who's thinking of shots like these. And this is just exceptionally beautiful animation over here. It looks like something Sota Yamazaki would do. Here you can really look at the design language, very similar to something like Look Back. This is the kind of beautiful line art that would usually be lost in second key animation or doga, but here it looks beautiful. Of course, it's going to be, I'm assuming, the first scene in season 1, so it makes sense that it looks good. And these effects look very much like Masahiro Tokumaru's effects. The curses are hand-drawn, but they look 3D because of the incredibly fluid movements. Which again, if it's Tokumaru animating, that kind of checks out. This is not CGI. That is hand-drawn animation. Tokumaru is just that guy. We see another incredibly beautiful correction. Look at the strokes of black lines on his hair particularly. Some of it has dyed outlines, but on other cases, just some strong black outlines thrown on top. The facial shading. Why is there an unevenness over here? Because that's how light usually bounces off someone's face. When you look at my face, you can tell that there's levels of depth to it. Yuji is a 2D character. Look at his nose. It's 2 lines. Throw this droplet-shaped light in there, however, and boom, you have a nose. It also moves, and moves quite a bit. I'm assuming it was probably just 2 keyframes for the entire thing and the rest was completed by Doga. It doesn't look like auto in-betweening as well, like Ufotable uses. Same with Megumi again, individual frames, that's done beautifully. I'm assuming just 2 keyframes again, and the rest of it is filled in by the in-between animators. Lots of subtle acting as well, like just look at Yuki moving her face a little bit. Those are individual frames. That's going to add to the frame count of the episode. About the background, however, don't know what the fuck is going on here. I don't know if that's intentional or not. It's such an obvious error if it's unintentional. So I'm not sure. They do seem to be in a different dimension here. They do have red outlines. Choso is officially a good guy as well, I'm guessing. Again, just small, subtle movements that you would usually only see in a movie production. The crumpling of his shirt as well, the force of his hands, the illustration of the hand itself, the shading is so gorgeous. This is more in line with the complex layouts that we are used to seeing from Goso. There's a giant monster in the background, but that's not the only thing he wants you to look at. Of course, there are curses flying in the foreground as well. This white mirror, I'm assuming that is Yuta landing in there, and then it's just beautifully flows into cubic debris. It's not Utapon cubes, but the shapes of the cubes are very Utapon-esque. It's definitely Shinsaku Kozuma's animation. I don't know who this character is in the forward. I think it's the same guy who we see fight Choso later. And yes, this cut is also once again absolutely done by Kozuma. He uses a lot of geometrical square-like shapes with his effects animation, and he uses like no depth outline within those drawings. Like this smoke has no layer of depth, like it's just one layer of smoke. It's like the exact opposite of Hayato Kurosaki's stuff. And I'm assuming that's a metaphorical representation of Yuta's hand. Another case of just adding frames for the sake of animation. The way his sword vibrates there looks so cool. That's 3 or 4 frames of animation, right? It's not really necessary, but it adds something to the scene. This is funny. I think they're still using the same CGI finger model from season 1. It's iconic at this point, so I'm glad that they're using it. Another really ambitious shot composition. There's no pseudo fisheye effect here, but still it's a really good perspective drawing. Multiple elements to the animation again. Yuji's character model drawn with extreme realism to the character acting. In the background, there's lots of effects animation. But to add to that depth perception, this background element is also animated. That is really cool. It could definitely be a rough 3D model that is made to look 2D via Goso Magic. Another excellent utilization of 3D background here with flawless perspective on Yuji. I love the smears on the electric lines going upwards as well. Looking at the debris animation here, I'm assuming that's still animated by Kozuma. Yeah, the effect is very similar to Utapon cubes, but there's rarely any anticipation with the timing. The knife just breaks apart in a gradual manner. These do look like Hiromi Niwa's corrections, and these look like Yosuke Yajima's corrections. So I'm assuming that's how they're just gonna stick with episode 1. Particularly enjoy the look of Yuta's hands here. So 3-dimensional and so rounded. Hiromi Niwa does use a lot of rounded shapes. I guess that's how you can differentiate between there and Yosuke Yajima style, which is a lot more sharp with the features. This is once again some other dimensional stuff. And yeah, it's our main cast again. These cuts, they do look a little bit awkward, which I'm just assuming is because of the editing, because it's just one zoomed in cut going to another zoomed in cut. It reminds me a lot of episode 9, another storyboard by Goso. But in that case, I'm sure it happened only because it's unfinished. If we saw the full cuts and we saw the clips in order, I'm sure it would look much better. Sometimes the opposite is also true. I'd seen Chainsaw Man's trailers so many times that once we got the full Tatsuya Yoshihara power cut, that ended up looking awkward because I was so used to how it was edited in the trailer. And Yuta looks fucking menacing, man. Another incredibly beautiful correction right there. Here we go. I think that's the same character. The drawing style is very Shinya Ohira inspired. I'm assuming this is done by Rui. Goso's Ohira style timing is a little bit different to this. This feels more in line with Rui's timing. Rui is just such an incredible up and upcoming animator. He's so awesome. The space they're fighting in, again, feels so surreal, right? The background here works as such an appealing negative space. If this is the same guy as we saw previously, I'm quite sure that this is a Zenin character because escaping Jujutsu Kaisen spoilers is next to impossible. If he's a Zenin, because of the way he's basically teleporting here, I'm assuming he has the same technique as the old guy Zenin. His technique is animation. Basically, he's skipping frames, quite literally. But yeah, these drawings are absolutely unreal. I mean, Rui did this, so yeah. As for the drawings, I'm still assuming that these are corrected by Yosuke Yajima, especially Choso, because, you know, Yajima and Choso is a match made in heaven. Incredible use of negative space, and look at the line art. Dyed outlines for his hair, first of all. It's white outlines over here because the background is black. Even his blood is almost black. A very slight shade of purple in there. As for here, I do not understand this background. Oh yeah, I can make it out right here. What is that supposed to be though? And then Yuji punches a curse here. Yep, that's a curse. That's exploding into effects animation. Again, looks like Tokumaru's effects, assuming that's still animated by him. The corrections there, however, it's just straight up Yajima. This is just straight up season 2 Yosuke Yajima. So I haven't read the manga, but I'm assuming this is Rika's blood. Rika or Riko. Okay, so Rika is Yuta's curse. Riko is the one who got shot by Toji, which would kind of make sense because it might mean that this gang is going to meet up Tengen, which is that alternate reality that we saw. Yuki does say that this is where everything started. It was Toji who unknowingly set off all the events that we see in Shibuya arc because he decided to kill teenagers. It's kind of borderline creepy that we are getting to see this. This is definitely a Kill Bill reference, and that's Maki, who's looking fucking insane here. There's also Mai over here. I also remember reading in some interviews somewhere that there's a Maki episode coming up and Goso really wanted to do that. I'm assuming this is what he was talking about. Extreme attention to detail where it matters. Look at the way her boobs are moving with the inertia. God, that's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, here she's twisting her body. It's going this way, so her boobs are basically squished over here. Here, because of the inertia, they're still tilted towards her left, and then they catch up over here. Beautiful animation. And yeah, incredible perspectives over here. I do not appreciate the motion blur. Hope that won't exist in the final version. But again, it's mainly the editing that kind of makes this look awkward.
As for guessing who animated this scene, the way the jawline is drawn is a dead giveaway that this is not corrected by the base chief animation directors. I have a couple of guesses here. It could be Nakaya Onsen. The line art here feels a little bit too clean to be by Onsen. It could also be a Takuya Ninuma correction or his key animation, which would be very interesting. Ninuma rarely draws action, and the shading and the volume that's presented through these drawings look very Ninuma-like. Regardless, I'm very excited to see who really animated this.
That is 3D debris. I can make out from the debris that's flying into the air. It's Goso trickery again. Goso's 3D looks very much like 2D because he's, making them himself in Blender. It's not depending on the 3D team in doing that. Another cool cut. The red just fading away from the background and going back to grayscale. I wonder what that's about. Maybe this scene is before the Rui cut. It's a space that's supposed to be red, engulfed in red, maybe Choso's red. Another really cool and impressive cut. Again, self-made 3D backgrounds. Again, classic Yajima corrections over there. Look at this drawing, so fucking cool. Finally, we are left with another drawing that doesn't really look like as Yajima. I'm assuming it's Niwa again. So maybe the theory is correct. All Yuta corrections by Niwa, whereas everything else is being done by Yajima, because I'm sure Choso is also Yajima. And even the Rui cut over here, with all of the obvious line art insanity, it still feels like there's a base correction by Yajima over here. So yeah, that's an excellent trailer. I mean, what were you fucking expecting? Some of the best stuff that the industry has ever seen. No longer completely nerfed by the schedule. You were always going to get something of this caliber. I'm not sure if I'll get to watch the movie because I'm going to be really busy with personal stuff in November. But I am really excited for Chainsaw Man later this month. I'm definitely going to be watching that. Outside of that, this was just supposed to be a quick and easy to make video. But all of my focus currently is going towards making videos on Takopi, regardless of whether those videos don't get views or if they get age restricted. So I hope you're looking forward to that. It's a lot of work, but I'm trying my best. If you like this video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Tell me what you liked or disliked about it in the comment section. I read most, if not all, comments. If you'd like to give me an extra little bit of support, you can join these fellow art connoisseurs as one of my members. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for the views.